What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Back again for the Probably Bullshit podcast. Joel Martinez is back, and he is American. Hell yeah, does it feel good to be American right now, guys? Justin Gaethje got it done. Our boy got it done. Um, Definitely, I'll come out and say it. One of the best UFC cards ever, if not the best. It's only 7 fights, 7 for 7 when it came to finishes. Insane. Clear sweep on finishes, KOs, let alone finishes for this card. So that was definitely enticing, very interesting. And to be honest, a big shutout for the favorites. When you guys look at the line, I believe I talked about this previously on a different podcast that I had when I was kind of previewing what this podcast or what this event was going to look like. And a lot of it seemed to show a bunch of heavy favorites. Uh, some lines closed, switched up a little bit as time went on, but for the most part, I believe every single favorite on this card won, except for Justin Gaethje, or except for Ilya, obviously being the favorite. But let's get into it, guys. We'll get into this. We'll start from the bottom, going up, starting with the first fight of the night being Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia. Big fight. I think the UFC definitely knew what they were doing when they scheduled this one to be a first fight of the night. Making this one, I feel like for the most part, there's gonna be some times where you get into like prelims or whatever. Obviously, this card didn't have any prelims exactly, but you get into prelims and you're gonna see a lot of no names, or I guess no names in reference to what the casual MMA fan sees with a bunch of guys that are not ranked or not in the top 5, top 10, or just not as commonly often referred to as big names in the UFC. But with this card only being 7 fights, only 14 fighters, I think it was definitely a really good option um, to get to highlight even some of the lower guys. So getting into it, Steve Garcia versus Diego Lopez. Definitely this kind of started slow. At least for Diego Lopez's side of the coin, Diego was definitely starting slow. Kind of struggled with his range at first. As the fight turned around, he got a little bit more aggressive going into that second round. I think that was just the biggest thing. Steve Garcia looked really good in the beginning as the fight started. Kind of was able to stay technical, use his own rangefinder, keeping that jab, keeping him at range, and Diego still up in that stance, doing that little twitch thing with his throat. Kind of couldn't find any type of answer for anything in there against Steve Garcia. But as time went on, Diego kind of just decided, you know what, fuck this. I'm not going to get in this technical kickboxing battle with you right now. Decided, whatever, I'm biting down on the mouthpiece, made it a physical fight, and got it done. Got into that slugfest, and Steve Garcia didn't really have much success in that slugfest for him, which is weird because I believe when I had talked about this before, I believed that Steve Garcia had the better punching power, definitely had more power in his hands. But all it takes is one, I guess, in a big slugfest like that. And Diego Lopez was the first one to land, first one to find his chin, and got it done in that way. I want to say that it was pretty impressive to see the ability to adapt for Diego. Diego was in there for the first round, kind of coasted again, like I said, slow first round for the both of them. And then as time went on, decided, okay, this little technical kickboxing isn't going to work as well, and just decided to blitz, get into where he needed to be. And that was just fucking landing some hands, getting some haymakers. I think a lot of people really wanted to see that out of Diego Lopez when it came to like the Volk fight, especially the second one. And no one really we never really got to see that. And it almost was kind of a replay of the exact same game plan that we saw in the first fight against Volk. But if you're Diego Lopez, what's next? If you're Steve Garcia, what's next? Diego, I don't see getting a title shot anytime soon while Volk still holds that strap. Luckily, it looks like Volk is probably going to be fighting Movsar Evloev next. So if you're Diego, you're hoping Movsar gets that win over there, and then you move up and get to defend your first ever loss in the UFC. I believe that was his debut as well. But let's assume Volk stays champion, or let's just say that Volk stays champion in this possible matchup that obviously isn't even booked. But Volk beats the next contender being most likely Movsar, like I said, and where's Diego from there, you know? Let's see. Let's look at actually, I'm going to pull up the rankings really quick and see. I think the best way to show it would really be to look at overall background. Cool. Let's see, make sure this works. Cool. All right. Let's go to these rankings really quick. Sorry about that, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, you see what I'm doing. If you're just listening, I'll walk you through where I'm kind of going. Rankings, 145 rankings. Here we are. Okay, Volkanovski champion, like I said, Diego Lopez number 2, under number 1 being Movsar. If you're Diego Lopez, you're probably looking at a Lerone Murphy matchup coming in. Lerone obviously just lost to Movsar. Diego on a win, Lerone on a loss, but 2 versus 3 is good. Aljamain obviously coming off of a win over Yusuf Zalal. Maybe we see a Diego versus Aljo. I'm not positive, but that's likely where I think things are going to go. Is you're going to see Diego Lopez versus either Lerone or Aljo. I doubt he's going to want to fight down in the rankings for that Yair fight. Everybody keeps talking about how they want that booked, but Yair with his inactivity doesn't seem like it's going to go there really. But now, if you are also Steve Garcia, we got to talk about what's next for you. Steve Garcia here, number 10 in the rankings, dropped down from number 9 to 10. You got to prove you're still up there with these featherweights, you know. Steve Garcia definitely has some good wins, was on a 7-fight win streak, bunch of KOs, but biggest win, Cater, Onama, also has win over Choi, Costa, which has aged pretty well with that win over Melky Costa. Anyways, if you're Garcia, you're probably looking at someone still hopefully in the top 10 if you're lucky. And from what I'm seeing here, there's a lot of guys open that have recently fought, being Kevin Vallejos with the win over Giga, Arnold Allen, John Silva, but again, that's fighting up in rank again. Brian Ortega, Aaron Pico even getting in the rankings now. I definitely a lot of options here now for Steve Garcia, but we'll see how that goes. We move on. Moving on to the next fight. So, next fight, we're looking at Bo Nickel versus Dawkins. For the most part, guys, I think this is kind of what, maybe not the finish exactly, but the outcome was overall expected. I kind of want to just glance over this whole fight for the most part. Bo showed some pretty easy ability to get a takedown in there, kind of had Dawkins a little lost. Got to the takedown, got to some ground and pound. When we got back up, you see that clean shot that lands, and then Dawkins shells up, and Bo Nickel's in there getting this finish. I think, again, like I said, for the most part, this was what was anticipated for the fight. A lot of people are even making memes and shit like that, talking about Dawkins, about how he didn't belong in there against Bo Nickel. But overall, I think there was still a good matchup for the possibility of Dawkins to get a win in there. Dawkins coming off of, I believe, 2 KOs, something like that. 2 wins, I know for sure, recently being re-signed to the UFC. But let's see, again, if you're Bo Nickel, what's next? Bo Nickel is currently is he ranked? I don't know if he's actually even ranked. Middleweight. Bo Nickel, 15, previously not ranked. I mean, you're barely in these rankings now here at top 15. A lot of openings there. Bo Nickel could be facing over Delidze, maybe a RoboCop. Is RoboCop booked? I don't think so. Just had that win over Ferreira. I don't know. A lot of options there. A lot of options. Christian Leroy Duncan, I want to say, is booked against Cannonier, right? I don't know. Yes, that is booked. July 18th. Perfect. Want to make sure I wasn't making shit up in my head. But if you're Bo, you got a lot of options entering that top 15. I think the UFC still wants to slow play that a little bit, keep him lower rankings, giving him some favorable matchups. I know people say that the UFC doesn't give favorable matchups. There's no such thing as like an easy fight or like a give me fight. But I think when it comes to matchup in styles, there are some things that I think the UFC can pull some strings to get maybe a favorable matchup for one of their guys. All right. Anyways, we move on. Michael Chandler versus Mauricio Rufy. Man, it's tough. It's tough being a Chandler fan, and definitely am. When it comes to you want to talk like a UFC White House card, you feel like this is the perfect opportunity for Michael Chandler to get a win. Right there on the White House lawn in front of Donald Trump. I mean, he's definitely one of the most American fighters in the UFC, let alone on this card. So it makes it pretty big for him to probably have to get a win here. But man, it. I want to not be heavily critical and a dickhead about this, but Chandler just couldn't get much of his offense going at all. Very minimal setups and really commitment to any of his shots. I think in the past, people have always given him criticism, talking about how he doesn't have the ability to have some fight IQ in a fight and always just gets into slugfests, which are entertaining. I mean, as a fan, you gotta love a Michael Chandler fight. When have you ever seen a boring Michael Chandler fight? It's very rare, if ever, especially not in the UFC. The guy's getting into wars, getting into slugfests for the fans. But when we're talking fight IQ and the ability to want to win, Chandler's got to use some of that wrestling. You never really see it in any of his fights, especially not the UFC fights, like I said. But everybody knows he has it. So I think that kind of was in his head now. And this is like, okay, UFC White House lawn, I need a win. I don't need a crazy brawl. I don't need fight of the night. I need a W. I need to be in the win column. Because what? I think he's like 2-6 now in the UFC, which is insane, especially for a guy that caliber to be facing all of the tough guys that he's been going against. But to praise Rufy, Rufy kind of just controlled the fight from start to finish. Again, he kind of made Chandler look like he didn't belong in there with him. Shut down all the early takedown attempts, set his own pace, stayed in control, and Chandler was just outmatched, especially after those early exchanges. But what's next? I was thinking about this earlier. Maybe like Chandler Beneil, because these are both some older guys who are on the backside of their career. Chandler versus Beneil Dariush. Loser retires. I don't know. Maybe both double retirement. We get a good little double retirement package ceremony with Joe Rogan talking to the both of them. I don't know, man. I don't. It's hard to like from the outside looking in to tell a fighter when they should or shouldn't retire, but it's tough. I don't want to see much more beatings on Michael Chandler like this. But fuck it, I mean, let's say Conor coming up. Conor's booked versus Max Holloway for International Fight Week, right? Let's say Conor loses to Max, and Michael Chandler still wants that fight. We do Michael Chandler versus Conor as Chandler send off. Maybe even Conor send off, because I'm pretty sure everybody keeps saying that he only has 2 fights left on his contract. Double send off again there. Possible. But if not, I mean, UFC, let's say the UFC releases Chandler or something like that. Send him to RAF. Send him to RAF Wrestling. The guys had already a fucking good performance over there before. Keep it up. Go make some money over there. Protect your head. Don't get any more brain damage. You'll be all right. Chandler to RAF, I think, makes sense. Now, if you're Rufy, this is where it's okay. You beat Chandler, right? But we start getting into some more unfavorable matchups, I would say. But okay, so we're here in lightweight. Yep. Where is Rufy? Rufy number 7 moved up from number 9. So now above him is Patty, BSD, Max, Charles, Armin, Ilya, and then Justin is the champ. But if you're Rufy, the BSD fight did not go your way at all. BSD really had his way there, kind of made that look pretty quick and easy. Maybe the Gamrot fight. Gamrot now at 8 versus 7. That kind of makes a little bit of sense. Patty's already booked. BSD's booked. Max is booked. Charles, that's now we're talking pretty high up in the rankings that I don't think Rufy's going to want to get to yet. But let's see what the UFC plans on that. I'm saying probably Rufy versus Gamrot. Gamrot has some really good grappling in there. I'm not sure that's what Rufi wants to face next. He'd probably prefer some type of striker, but let's see. We'll see what the UFC does there. All right, moving on. Chandler versus Rufi. Got across that. All right. Derek Lewis versus Josh Hokett. Oh, man. This was kind of exactly how I expected this fight to go. I love Derek Lewis. I love the Black Beast. The dude, my balls is hot. USA and Disho, some of the best verbiage, some of the best one-liners you'll ever hear were from that man there. But I don't know, man. Derek Lewis now 40, 41 years old. He's definitely on the backside of the career. Wasn't really looking like he was able to keep up with the speed of Josh Hokett or the athleticism alone. Couldn't stop much of the wrestling. Hokett kind of just put on the wrestling and was able to nullify any type of like heavy striking that Derek Lewis wanted. Derek Lewis kind of has the same game plan, it seems, in every one of his fights, where it's like, all right, I'm going to run in there and knock a motherfucker out. And if it doesn't work, well, then shit, you know? And again, I don't know what it is his coaches are working on or anything. Maybe this just might be a Derek Lewis issue that he goes in with his own little mental game plan, and the game plan from his coaches kind of goes out the window. But from what we can see, it just looks like Derek Lewis is in there to land a fucking KO on somebody. And if that doesn't work, well, then we hit a brick wall. And so does the cardio. Again, I'm not talking shit about Derek Lewis because the guy's one of the best, in the most respectful way possible, gatekeepers of this heavyweight division. You want to get to the top of the top in this heavyweight division, you got to go through Derek Lewis. And if you get fucking sent to the shadow realm by one of his right hands, then you got to stay your little ass out until it's time to get back and make another crack at it later on. But Josh Hokett, Josh Hokett kind of used the wrestling, controlled again, like I said, kept Lewis away from his striking ability to land. I'm honestly not sure Derek Lewis landed one good significant strike that was ever even a question for Hokett's chin. We did see that Josh Hokett little armbar attempt. I think he was kind of trolling because a lot of people were talking shit about it, but like he was all like screaming and shit. But if you look at like the form on it, I don't think he really wanted it. He was kind of just fucking around. But either way, what's next for the two of these guys? Derek Lewis, like I said, you can kind of keep Derek Lewis up as this little gatekeeper against any type of new up and coming heavyweight that wants to make their way into the top 15, top 10 rankings. You got to go through Derek Lewis. Kind of the same thing we saw with Teixeira. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because we keep seeing Derek lose, win, lose, lose, win, lose, win, win, lose. It's like a back and forth thing with Derek Lewis, but keep him going against some of these heavyweights, and maybe we get some fucking sick KOs every once in a while, and Derek Lewis will be fine. Josh Hokett is another question, though, because you start looking at his ranking now, and again, we're getting back into these rankings to pull up exactly. Here we are. Start getting back into these rankings, and Josh Hokett is now number 4. 4, yes. Was previously number 5. I want to see the Cortez Acosta versus Josh Hokett matchup. I think that makes the most sense, especially with now Cyril Gane likely fighting Tom Aspinall next. We'll get into it. Let's hope, anyways, with him being the interim champion. But again, we'll get into that. Volkov at number 2, Sergey number 3. I think the most interesting fight could be the Cortez Acosta versus Josh Hokett matchup. I know Josh Hokett has kind of been talking about how he wants to crack at Pereira, and that's assuming if Pereira stays at heavyweight. Again, that's something we'll talk about later on. But if I'm a UFC matchmaker, I'm going to Cortez Acosta. Cortez coming off that loss to Volkov, and Josh Hokett coming off the win over Derek Lewis. So we'll see. Again, I am not a matchmaker. I have no clue where it's going to go. I think that kind of makes the most sense, though. Moving on. Cyril Gane versus, or no, actually, let's go Sean O'Malley versus Amin Zahabi. Again, this is another one that was kind of a really favorable matchup for Sean O'Malley that I think they had the outcome was kind of really heavily anticipated, whether it was going to be like a dominant performance out of O'Malley and we get a unanimous decision or some type of KO. I think that's what majority of people were kind of expecting, and that's kind of what we got. O'Malley controls the distance, keeps his range well. Wasn't really looking too bothered at all by any type of leg attacks or not leg attacks, but leg kicks or anything that Amin Zahabi was throwing. So Zahabi kind of seemed like he wanted to get into this Philly shell and only was looking to blitz when he was looking to throw leg kicks, which was odd. Definitely biting really hard on some feints. Didn't look like he looked a lot more nervous in there. Like he was looking like shelling up, like he was getting pretty scared of what O'Malley could possibly cause in there. And I mean, I don't blame him. Um, yeah, it's different once you kind of see O'Malley in there. O'Malley stayed really relaxed, kind of picked his moment on when he wanted to attack, and got the job done. I mean, I know a lot of people were talking about how that might have been an early stoppage. I can see that, but I really think even if that wasn't stopped when it was, you're probably going to look at another big overhand right like we've seen previously from O'Malley, and you get him out of there then. But who knows? Amin Zahabi's definitely been known as very durable. He takes the huge soccer kick from Jose Aldo not that long ago and still comes back to win that round, let alone the fight. So I could be wrong. Maybe you're supposed to give Amin Zahabi more chance, more time to recover there. That's why I'm not a UFC referee. So I don't know. I wasn't really mad at the stoppage terribly. What's next? If you are O'Malley, I mean, let's assume this Marab versus Peter Yan 3 is getting booked, which who knows? At first, it seemed like Peter Yan was the one going through like some back surgery and was kind of holding that up, and then come to find out, Marab just broke his nose in RAF wrestling, so he's gonna have some type of surgery or some type of holdout with injury there. So we'll see what it looks like now for that fight getting booked. If Peter's healthy, then you're probably getting Peter something else, or maybe they're both waiting and we'd take the Peter Marab fight later on. But I know O'Malley's calling for the Peter Yan rematch. I guess it kind of makes sense with the idea of he kind of has a win over him already, so you have a win over the current champion. It makes sense to want to book there. But I've also been a big advocate, and I know the rest of the internet has been a big advocate of that O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen fight. So we got to wait to see how this Corey Sandhagen versus Mario Batista fight plays out. I think if Corey gets this win over Mario, you kind of are looking in the same boat as O'Malley is getting this win over Amin Zahabi. Because we look at the rankings here, O'Malley's number 2, under number 1 being Marab. Corey's number 4, under number 3 Umar, 2 Sean, 3 or 1 Marab. But Sean just got a win over Amin, who's number 6. And if Corey could get a win over Mario, who's number 7, you kind of put O'Malley and Corey in another a really similar situation in which, fuck it, maybe we just get a number 1 contender fight. Winner fights Peter Yan. But by that time, let's say, okay, O'Malley wins, Corey wins. By the time those two then go on and fight, and the winner of that would then get Peter Yan, it feels like it's been a while, so maybe Marab would have fit in by then. So, fuck it. If Marab versus Peter Yan gets booked first, then I say we go O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen. Finally give the fucking people what they want and what they've been desiring for so long. Moving on. Well, actually, now if you're... Okay, let's go back. Hold on. I know I just exited out of this, but let me look at the rankings for Amin Zahabi's side of the coin. If you're Amin Zahabi, number 6, you got Song Yadong, who just fought, who just beat Figueiredo at number 5. David Martinez also, I believe. Is David Martinez booked? Yes, against Umar. Yes, July 25th. Perfect. No one's really talking about David Martinez. I will admit that I was also one of the people who was not expecting him to be getting so high up in the rankings. But if you're Amin Zahabi, I mean, you've already beat Chito Vera, who's at number 10. Figueiredo kind of just took a pretty big loss at number 9. If you want to go lost versus lost, then you go Zahabi versus Figueiredo. If you want to still take a crack at that top five, then you go Song Yadong. But I don't know. Definitely interesting there. Where the fuck has Peyton Talbot been, by the way? Come on, UFC. What are we doing? Carry on. All right. Co-main event. Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira. Man, this was a little heartbreaker for me, I'll be honest. Because when you really look at it, it makes when you really look at who had what tools in their belt for this win, all signs really pointed to Cyril Gane being the one who would be the successor in this. Cyril definitely has a lot more ability to move laterally, side to side, puts a lot of combos together, um, shows more danger in the hands with more ability to kind of just show more on the feet, whereas Alex obviously is a one hit kill for the most part, but it seemed like that's all he had, at least for Cyril Gane, anyways. Alex was definitely looking really hesitant, kind of struggled with the size and the pressure up at heavyweight now. I know a lot of people were also talking about the size being a really big factor, that maybe Alex had put on too much weight, whereas you see Cyril Gane looking huge and jacked, and Alex just having a big dump truck ass now at heavyweight. I don't know, man. Again, not my forte, not my what's the word that I'm looking for? Not my expertise to comment on how to gain weight to get to a heavyweight. I'm fucking definitely one of the smaller guys around, so who am I? Who am I to say? But Cyril Gane kind of attacks the legs early, even shows touching the legs just to kind of get like some type of like idea of a takedown, and that kind of really stopped Pereira, slowed down his striking, made him not want to really let his hands go anymore because he was kind of fearful, I believe, at least of a takedown coming in. But yeah, his footwork was definitely one of the biggest weapons that he had against a guy like Pereira. Cyril Gane, like I said, moving really laterally, whereas Pereira was kind of just moving only forward and back, like not much footwork. He just has that front step and looking to land like that one shot. You don't ever see Pereira in there landing combos 1-2, 1-2-3. Whereas that's what Cyril Gane was more focusing on. So that's tough. Definitely a tough loss. Again, like I said, all of the signs kind of showed that Cyril Gane should win this, and feelings don't care about the facts. So I was like, fuck it. We're still rooting for my boy Chama right now. What's next? Like I was saying, technically Cyril Gane should be facing Tom Aspinall next for the title, but let's see how this Tom Aspinall situation goes with the whole eye injury that Cyril Gane himself caused. But if Cyril Gane has to defend the interim title, I don't know where it goes against, dude. If again, like I said, if Cyril has to defend this interim title, is it against Volkov again? The Volkov who a lot of people believe beat him, who I believe beat him, which didn't make sense either because Dana White had said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna take care of you," because he also felt like Volkov was robbed. But instead, nope, Cyril Gane gets the title shot anyways. But I don't know. If you're Cyril, you're praying your next fight is Tom Aspinall. But we'll see. If you are Alex Pereira, do you stay at heavyweight? I know a lot of people were saying like he didn't look as good. Maybe move back down to 205. 205, I think, like I said, he weighed in at 251. That's a big cut back down to 205. I doubt Pereira really wants to do that. But if you still want to prove yourself, prove that you're able to hang with these top five guys or the top echelon of the heavyweights, and you're Pereira, you're probably looking at like maybe a Volkov fight. Volkov being a pretty tall, like 6'7", 6'6" guy, definitely also a striker. I wouldn't say he really has as much footwork as you see out of Cyril Gane, even though he beat Cyril Gane, but not an extensively hard puncher in reference to the rest of the heavyweight division. So I think maybe that'd be a little bit more favorable of a matchup for Alex. I'm not saying he would win it, but at least it would kind of, if he were to win it, it would prove that he has the ability to hang with these top guys at this division. But we'll see. And I know previously I had mentioned the Josh Hokett possible matchup as well for Pereira. It makes sense if you're Hokett. If you are Pereira, I doubt they want to book it. And it kind of makes sense for Pereira too. I know I had just said that it made sense for Hokit, but it makes sense for Pereira too because that line has already kind of been the fight made itself with this whole hype up to this fight. All of the shit that Hokit was talking to Pereira made it a lot more interesting that maybe these two could possibly fight. And to be honest, based on what Alex looked like, if we're going solely based off the performance that Alex put against Cyril Gane, I think Josh Hokit beats him. Um, Especially because of Josh Hokit's ability to wrestle, kind of definitely move the feet a little bit more, put some combos together, stay aware and stay out of a huge left hand, right hand to put you to sleep. Kind of the same game plan he was playing against Derek Lewis. Again, I'm not saying Derek Lewis and Alex Pereira are the same fighter, but based on the sample size we saw out of Pereira in that fight, uh, yeah, it looks like Hokit would probably beat him there. And if you're the UFC who just signed Pereira to an 8-fight deal, I doubt you want to get your guy beat right now. Nor do you really want to get Hokit beat. I mean, these are two big up and coming stars. Obviously, Pereira kind of already being a star, Hokit looking to get up there still. Why kill one of your stars when you can keep them both on the rise? Um, but I don't know. And again, this is assuming that Pereira stays at heavyweight, which I think he kind of should. But we'll see. We move on to the main event. Jeez Louise, man. America is on top. We are back, guys. America is on top. That's Sean Strickland taking on the undefeated boogeyman in Chimaev, and then Justin Gaethje taking on the undefeated boogeyman in Ilia Topuria. USA, we're back. We're putting United States MMA on the map, guys. I say we as if I had anything to do with it. USA, I did. I'm part of this fucking country, god damn it. Anyways, geez, man, this was what a fight. Oh man. Getting into like the specifics on how I felt stuff went. I really think Justin used a lot of his uppercuts and even kind of slight use of some head kicks as well to keep Topuria cautious and keep his hands up or whatever. You would see every time Justin would kind of go for this uppercut, they were landing. He was getting into like this dirty clinch on the breaks. And as soon as like this clinch would come in, he'd get into landing that uppercut. Uppercut was landing pretty clean, with definitely Ilya being the shorter guy. It made it easier for him. But every once in a while, he would also kind of feint the uppercut and go for that overhand instead. Beautiful, was landing every time. Made good use of his size in that clinch. It was a big one for sure. The size was definitely a big factor that I think Ilya wasn't used to dealing with. I know Ilya is usually one of the smaller guys in his fights, but I don't think anybody he's faced has really had that much size on him like Justin did. You didn't really see that out of Max or Charles or Volk, obviously down at 45. But Max and Charles always kind of been referred to as like some skinnier guys. Volk 45er. So Justin was kind of the first one that he's getting into like as a bigger 155er, you know. Experience was a huge factor right there for Justin. Justin's been in these wars plenty times. That's something that Ilya hasn't done. Again, Ilya really never has to because of his ability to get people out of there pretty soon. But you start looking into these first ever 4th round, 5th rounds. For Ilya, he's getting into some wars. He faces some adversity. You got to see what that looks like there. And when that big overhand doesn't land, it kind of went downhill for Topuria. I think Topuria is just used to being able to just knock people out. I mean, obviously you see that in all of his interviews, being as confident as he is, talking about how he plans on putting Justin out in within 2 minutes. Had no respect really for the striking of Justin. At first round, he literally marches at him just straight forward and was willing to take 2 to give 1 because he was thinking his 1 is going to be the one to put him out, which usually it is on most of his previous opponents. But Ilya did look sharp and technical still early in the fight. He had some grappling advantages, had success with it. I definitely wasn't too much of a fan of him looking for like if you're rooting for Ilya, you can't be too much of a fan of him looking for that mounted triangle armbar or whatever. They're getting all sweaty, blood all over each other. You're going to lose it in there, as he did. I get it, I guess, when you're not wanting to get back onto the feet, getting cracked like you have been by Justin. But Ilya looked pretty uncomfortable on his back foot. Again, I think Ilya is very used to being the hammer and not the nail. He plays a good hammer. not too much of the nail. You got to be able to take some to give some. Definitely was less confident when it became a tough physical fight that got into like those fucking brawls that Ilya isn't used to. Um, Kind of a gas tank check again as well. I mean, he got his gas back, his cardio back after I think it was the third he gassed out. Yes, after the third he gassed. He was pretty gassed. Took the third round off, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but and then as the fourth came back, he got that gas tank back and was back in it for at least a little bit prior to the end of that round, getting crushed up pretty bad, taking a pretty big knee to the side as well, and then went back into the whole idea of no, I think I'm good. I don't know if it was exactly his coaches. I believe it was his coaches that were kind of calling that, saying that he was all right. We're done. Live to fight another day. But yeah, big, big, big win for America. Big win for Justin Gaethje. How can you not love Gaethje? I know a lot of people were also talking about they thought maybe he should retire in this, but when we really talk about what's next, this is where kind of the doors open up again for Justin Gaethje. If you're Justin, I mean, there's the possibility of the winner of Max versus Connor. So let's say Max wins the Connor fight. Then you got Max versus Connor rematch, or no, sorry, Max versus Justin rematch, which is definitely a big one. Giving Max now the chance at undisputed back up at 155. If Connor wins, geez, if Connor wins, imagine a Justin versus Connor fight. That would feed generations. I know a lot of people, me included, were still thinking that maybe Armin would be the immediate rematch, or not rematch, but the immediate title defense for Justin Gaethje. But if you're Armin, are you really deserving of a title shot anymore? I was talking to a couple of my buddies, and they were all kind of in agreement that maybe Armin isn't as deserving anymore of a title shot with all of his stay away from MMA for quite some time, whether that be to his own fault or the UFC not booking him, whatever it may be. I mean, his most recent win was over Dan Hooker, which that win hasn't really aged well because Dan Hooker then went on and took a pretty big loss to BSD as well. I also heard rumblings of maybe Dustin coming back for the Justin fight. I've made it clear on this. I am not a fan of people coming out of retirement for fights, so leave Dustin out of it, please. Um, yeah, if you're Justin and you don't retire, um, I I'm gonna assume the most possible matchup that happens next is Justin versus Max, unless Max loses to Connor, then it's Justin versus Connor, which is a huge fight. That'd be insane. Um, but that's assuming Connor can get past Max. I don't know. I really doubt it. If you're Patty, you're chomping at the bit now to get a bite of Ilya. I think Ilya. I mean, obviously, Patty has his fight booked now against BSD coming up, also at International Fight Week. But the game plan's kind of been a little bit laid. Again, easier said than done. Not everybody can kind of recreate that fight style that Justin put on against Ilya. But if you're Patty, you're a lot more confident in possibly doing that fight sometime soon, assuming you get past BSD. But I don't know. I'm not sure where Ilya goes from here. That's definitely a fight that changes you. You know, not many people are going to come back from a whooping like that and be the same fighter you once were. It takes a hit to your mental, your confidence. I mean, your physical ability. That a beating like that takes fucking years off your life, to be honest. You leave a part of yourself in that cage like that, going through a dogfight like that. We'll see. Ilya is definitely going to take a lot of time off based on that beating. I was really surprised to see something like that, guys. Like Ilya take a beating like that, worse than Patty's. Patty's was bad. I remember a lot of people were talking about how bad Patty's face it looked. I could only imagine what Ilya's face looks like today. It's it's a tough one, guys. But America is on top. Justin Gaethje now has held every belt ever, interim, undisputed, and BMF. The guy's a fucking legend. Greeley, stand up. UNC, stand up. Denver, Colorado, stand up. Fuck yeah. UFC White House delivered. I know I was talking shit about it. It was mainly just to be funny. But no, I was kind of being serious at the same point too, though. Probably one of the greatest cards I've ever seen, guys. I mean, nothing could have been better. I guess there was a couple matchups, but we've been over that before that maybe could have been better. Um, but overall, great card, great fights. I'm excited to say that I was able to lock in and watch Justin Gaethje finally get what he's tried now 3 times for. Third time's the charm, baby. And I told a lot of people that if Justin Gaethje were to knock out Ilia Topuria, I would get an American flag tattooed on me. It's happening. I'm getting an American flag somewhere tattooed on my body in respect of the American getting it done on the White House lawn, baby. Oh man, I'm wondering what's next? What's next if you're Justin? I think that's definitely the biggest question now is what's next for Justin. I know a lot of people are still thinking whether or not he might retire. Um, but that money, that undisputed money is coming in now. I mean, Justin was probably making a shit ton of money before he ever even became an undisputed champion. I can only imagine now. I mean, he gets that bonus, 850,000, 825,000 for the double bonus on the White House lawn. It's tough. It's tough to be making that type of money and then walk away from it. Way easier said than done. You get a new championship contract. You're getting not pay-per-view points anymore, but title holder points. However, that works now in the Paramount era, but it's tough. Definitely a good place to be in though if you're Justin Gaethje, having a lot of options. America's on top. We're the fucking best. Who can beat us? Nobody. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up, guys. That just was my huge rant of the day. Wanted to go off. I wanted to kind of get in here, get out, but that was still pretty long of a podcast. So I'm excited I got to talk about it. Big card. I know cards are really good when I have people that I don't really even talk to too much about UFC cards reaching out to me, asking me about how I felt about certain fights, blah, blah, blah. It makes me excited to know that a lot more non-heavy UFC indulgers feel. But when they're finally getting in and asking some questions, it shows that the UFC is growing, baby. MMA is growing. We have people growing, getting on the mountain. So we carry on, and America gets more champions, baby. Let's go. Thank you again, everybody, for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. We'll be back soon enough. Hopefully, I'm not gone for too long. We'll see what's going on in the news, what we want to cover, what goes on within the life of Joel. But probably a bullshit podcast. We're out of here. Thank you.